two Democratic presidential candidates, Bernie Sanders and Julian Castro, have agreed to speak before the Islamic Society of North America (ISNA). The candidates will address the forum during its convention in Houston on August 31, 2019. The ISNA is listed by the United States Justice Department as an entity of the Muslim Brotherhood, which is a terrorist organization linked to several Islamist and jihadist global political movements. These movements have as their goal the establishment of a global caliphate. This means that their goals are to subject all human beings to Sharia law. In fact, the president of ISNA was quoted in a 2006 film as saying that the organization's mission was to change the Constitution of America. The organization has as its goals, by means of a jihad campaign, the destruction of Western civilization from within. There are several reasonable people who believe that both Sanders and Castro are either ignorant of the ISNA's real goal, or are simply trying to turn a blind eye to an organization's radical agenda with the hopes that they can modify the nihilistic and jihadist agenda of the movement. Nothing could be further from the truth. I submit that both Castro and Sanders, given their virulent demonstrations of Americaphobia, are directly complicit with the goals of ISNA. They are joining forces with an enemy organization to delegitimize our great republic under the current form of its constitutional configuration. Before analyzing the real motives behind these America-hating politicians, let us briefly examine their stated political visions for America. Bernie Sanders is an avowed democratic socialist. He intends to transform our system of free market enterprise that has lifted millions out of poverty and raised the standard of living for all persons. What does he intend to transform our socio-economic American civilization into? A totalitarian, expropriative government of theft by legalization. Socialism advocates vesting ownership and control of the means of production, capital and land in the community as a whole. Socialism is not a morally neutral system. Any system of governance presupposes an answer to the questions: are you a sovereign entity? Who owns your life, work and mind? Is your mind something that can be nationalized and its material contents distributed by the state? Socialists think the answer is yes. They believe the products of one's efforts belong to the community, that the state and society have a moral and financial responsibility to care for other people's children. That is, the procreative choices made by those who are strangers to us, and that the most successful and productive people should be the most penalized. This is the socio-economic caliphate Sanders wants established not just in America, but throughout the world. Like ISNA, he wants to radically challenge our Constitution and change the political DNA of our great republic. Julian Castro is such a political and social ballast that it might not even be worth mentioning his totalitarian agenda for America were it not for the fact that such an agenda is becoming normalized. He wants to establish free healthcare for all illegal immigrants, thereby skirting the laws of the land by appropriating tax dollars for those whose illegals activities would be normalized and legitimized via a governmental fiat of hand whose conferral of a benefit that, even if justified, could only be granted to U.S. citizens. He wants to supersede the rule of law with a dastardly vision of open borders. Castro also wants to eviscerate from all governmental legal codes the term illegal immigrant, thus blurring the distinction between those who are here legally and those who are not. Now we begin to see why such candidates are eager to speak before a unit of the terrorist organization known as the Muslim Brotherhood. All parties are united in their goals of normalizing and mainstreaming that which is not just radical, but inimical to the national security interests of America. All are purveyors of normalizing national security threats to the United States of America. All are interested in making sure that, as philosopher Ayn Rand pointed out, the uncontested absurdities of today are the accepted slogans of tomorrow. They come to be accepted by degrees by dint of constant pressure on one side and constant retreat on the other, until one day when they are suddenly declared to be the country's ideology. Do Sanders and Castro want an Islamic global caliphate ruling Western civilization? If such were the means of establishing their radical totalitarian and anti-America vision for the world, perhaps. I'm not sure. What I am sure of is that in agreeing to speak before such a jihadist organization, they intend to mainstream the radical manifestations of a movement's philosophy, and to establish it as a common canard among the voices of U.S. citizens. When the sensibilities of all rational persons have been neutralized and dulled into submission, the introduction of the radicals' own agendas will pass into the mainstream uncontested. Sanders and Castro, and other politicians such as Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib will undermine our republic by making unholy alliances with forces that have as their goals the radical transformation of the socio-economic culture of the United States and Western civilization. Another goal they share is the re-socialization of the moral and political sensibilities of those Americans who are highly persuadable, that is, into becoming enemies of the republic. These socio-economic jihadists might not be religious jihadists, however, they are fighting to the death for the method by which the Islamist jihadists are using to win their battle of destruction over the West. First, by neutralizing the moral ammunition defenders of America and the West have at their disposal by positing such ammunition as detrimental and destructive of the agency of a group of individuals showcased as permanent victims of the nefarious and imperialistic West. This moral ammunition consists in, among other things, our Constitution, our Bill of Rights, our celebrated and successful form of capitalism, religious freedom, freedom of conscience, freedom of association, in total, the complete abolition of individual and property rights. Second, they along with other haters of America are part of a coterie of individuals who are socio-cultural jihadists operating with impunity right here in our own republic. Their association with ISNA is not accidental or innocent. It is an attempt to bleed to death by thousands of tiny scratches this country of its moral vocabularies of defense and resistance by the normalization and the mainstreaming of goals whose implementation would see the annihilation of America as we know it. Sanders, Castro and sundry politicians may not explicitly desire an America ruled by Sharia law, but they are willing to bed down with those movements and individuals that do, and they are all too ready to defang this country of its bedrock principles. This then allows such political actors to usher into existence a new America, a collectivist America, a totalitarian America, an America whose cultural identity will be destroyed and replaced by a non-vision, if nihilism and wanton destruction for the sake of destruction can be referred to as visions. This, however, is how all social engineering movements that operate by stealth and subterfuge win their battles, promulgate their ideas and execute their policies. Let us all unmask the Faustian bargains such politicians like Castro and Sanders and others are making with our avowed enemies. No, unlike the jihadists, they will not murder us in cold blood. They will simply sell us cultural suicide as a moral virtue. Their clarion call, sacrifice who and what we are in the name of some futuristic horror that one day will, somehow, after we are dead, be for the good of our children. We, the living, must choose life, and we must choose those values that are conducive to life itself, our Constitution and Bill of Rights, and our glorious American sense of life that has inspired millions of Americans and those around the world to aim for an aspirational identity forged in the crucibles of only what a constitutional republic can achieve: freedom, the exercise of our moral conscience and judgments, and the inviolable right to co-life plans for ourselves unobstructed by a totalitarian political institution that would sell its death cult as a moral vision. Asterisk photo credit, composite, Alamy, Brian Mays. Let's block ads. Why?